juice, Isaiah 16 and verse 10, or it could be the intoxicating kind, like we're looking at tonight in the book of Proverbs. But in the book of Proverbs, the father and the mother speak to their children about wine. And so that's what we're going to be doing tonight. We have two contexts that we're going to be looking at. I hope this will pull up so you can see some of these slides. Stephen, how's it doing? Okay, there we go. There we go. Proverbs, the study of Solomon's subjects, wine and strong drink. Now, this was one of the slides we had last Wednesday night. We won't take time to mention anything except we see wine bibber, we see strong drink, we see drunkard. All of these are spoken of in the book of Proverbs. Now, remember, the proverbial parents deem it necessary. They think it's important enough to talk to their son and their daughter about wine. And so we made some serious observations. I'm just going to run through some of these. I took out several of these that we used last week, but read these with me. Ours has been called the alcoholic age. Again, we're now producing alcoholics at the staggering rate of about 1,500 a day. In 1980, there were 48 breweries in America. In 2012, there were 1,500. In 2018, there was said to be 7,000. And so we can see how this is multiplied, how it's increased. One man said, there's no such thing as responsible drinking. It's always irresponsible and dangerous. Again, Dr. Sidney Cohen, a drug abuse expert, describes alcohol as, quote, the most dangerous drug on earth. Robert Elliott said alcohol is used by a majority of the adult population and creates more problems than all other drugs combined. Now that's saying a lot. Jim McGuigan said alcohol is an addictive drug. It's even more dangerous because it's socially acceptable and legally approved. The next one, liquor has many defenders, but no defense. No Christian ought to be an apologist for beverage alcohol. And I stated I can easily defend not drinking, but no one can safely defend its consumption. And think about this, alcoholism is 1,000 times easier to prevent than it is to cure. And so there's no just criticism of complete abstinence from liquor. Some may ridicule and laugh at you, but there's no law of God or man to be broken by leaving it alone. Now this brings us to two contexts. The first one's in Proverbs 23, verses 29 through 35. The next one's going to be in Proverbs 31, verses 1 through 9. So we're going to have to move quickly to make it through both of these contexts, but these are very important contexts. Let's listen again and keep in mind now that the proverbial parents are teaching their children, teaching them concerning the dangers of alcohol. And so what we're going to do is we're going to read this first and we'll come back and look at this verse by verse. But notice what it says. Verse 29. Notice here are 6 questions. Who has woe? Who has sorrow? Who has contentions? Who has complaints? Who has wounds without cause? Who has redness of eyes? So all of these questions are being stated right now. They're being asked. Verse 30 answers those questions. Those who linger long at the wine. Those who go in search of mixed wine. Verse 31 presents a prohibition, if you will, a do not. And so look what it says. Here's how to avoid what was just mentioned in verse 29. Do not look on the wine when it's red, when it sparkles in the cup, when it swirls around smoothly. Verse 32, at the last it bites like a serpent and stings like a viper. And so from verse 32 and following, Solomon justifies the prohibition. Why does he say, do not look upon the wine? Well, because at the last it bites like a serpent and stings like a viper. Verse 33, your eyes will see strange things and your heart will utter perverse things. Yes, you'll be like one who lies down in the midst of the sea, or like one who lies at the top of the mast, saying, they have struck me, but I was not hurt. They have beaten me, but I did not feel it. When shall I awake that I may seek another drink? Well, let's go back and look at these. Let's give some thought to what Solomon is saying here. And notice, first of all, these questions. Who has woe? Who has sorrow? Who has contentions? Who has complaints? Who has wounds without cause? Who has redness of eyes? These 6 things are probably referring to the general effects, if you will, of intoxication, of drunkenness. And notice now, some people have these things, but again, they're not self-inflicted. A lot of people have woe. A lot of people have sorrow. You know, in this life, we're going to face some things that are difficult, aren't we? A lot of people have contentions. Others contend with them. Others have complaints. They have wounds. They have redness of eyes. But once again, they didn't get it from the same source that Solomon is talking about. And so when you look at this, it's bad enough to have one of these things. Just who has woe, that's bad. Who has sorrow, that's bad. But you put all 6 of these together, it's unthinkable. It's unbelievable. And what's unbelievable is this is all self-inflicted. Again, remember, the one who has this, as we'll notice, is the one who lingers long at the wine. But I want to mention something here. Who has wounds without cause? Now, there are people who have wounds, and they have a cause behind those wounds. Some people have been injured severely because they were protecting their family. You know, our veterans come home from war, and many times they have wounds, don't they? But there's a cause behind that. They're defending the nation. Sometimes people take a stand for the helpless and for those who can't, and maybe they're maligned and maybe even injured for that. Well, they have wounds, but they have a cause behind it. These right here have wounds without cause. This is senseless. This, once again, there's no reason behind their wounds. And so think about all of this. Who has all of this? Well, as we've already read, look at verse 30. Those who linger long at the wine, those who go in search of mixed wine. The mixed wine, most believe, are those that have strong spices added to it, mixed with it. But nevertheless, those who linger long at wine, those are the ones who have the woe, they have the sorrow, they have the contentions, they have the complaints, they have the wounds without cause, they have the redness of eyes. Those who linger long at the wine, those who go in search of mixed wine. Go with me for just a moment. I want to read a couple of verses. Turn with me first. Keep your place if you're looking at Proverbs 23. But go with me to Isaiah, the 5th chapter. I want you to see something. Remember what we've looked at, who has woe, and then those who linger long at wine. Look at Isaiah 5. We're going to read a couple of verses in this chapter. Isaiah 5, look at verse 11, and look how it begins. Woe. Who has woe? Well, here's one who has it. Woe to those who rise early in the morning, that they may follow intoxicating drink, who continue until night, till wine inflames them. Well, there it is. They go linger long at wine. They're in search of mixed wine. Again, look in this same chapter. Look at verses 22 and 23. Woe to men mighty at drinking wine. Woe to men valiant for mixing intoxicating drink, who justify the wicked for a bribe and take away justice from the righteous man. Now remember these two put together. The two woes here, and verse 23, justifying the wicked for a bribe and taking away justice from the righteous man. When we get to the next context, this is exactly why King Lemuel's mother is telling him as king, you don't need wine. You get away from wine, lest you forget the law, lest you pervert justice. Well, again, that's what's taking place here. There are a lot of other verses where we could look. We don't have time tonight, but again, woe. Every one of those verses begins with that woe, verse 11, and of course, verse 22. The woe. And so who has woe? Those who linger long at wine. Those who go in search of mixed wine. Notice this. Remember the book of Proverbs. It is the father and mother teaching their son and daughter, if they're going in search of anything, go search after wisdom. You get wisdom. You get understanding. Wisdom is the principal thing. Read Proverbs 4 in verse 5 and Proverbs 4 in verse 7. You search after this. This is so precious, you want to find it. But not searching after wine, intoxicating drink. All you're going to find after that search is over, all you're going to find is woe and sorrow and contentions and complaints and wounds without cause and redness of eyes. Well, look at the next verse. Do not look on the wine when it's red, when it sparkles in the cup, when it swirls around smoothly. Notice that. Do not look on the wine. Here again is that prohibition. Now I'm going to suggest, if Solomon says don't even look at it, what does that imply? It certainly implies don't drink it. You're not even to look upon that wine. And he's talking about in the intoxicated, drink, in the state where it is alcoholic. Don't look on it. When it's red, when it sparkles in the cup, when it swirls around smoothly. If you've ever watched any program today, it seems like, and Julie and I were talking about this, we like to see the Hallmark movies when they're good, but there was a little string of Hallmark movies, and all it was about was wine making, and of course they have this test, and they swirl it around. Wine is judged by its color, it's judged by its taste, it's judged by its taste or its aftertaste, it's judged by its bouquet, whatever that is, But there's a lot of things, and so you'll watch them, and they'll do this, and they'll sniff it, and they'll swirl it around in their mouth, and this is what Solomon is saying. Don't be attracted to it. Don't be led to it. Do not look on the wine when it's red, when it sparkles in the cup, when it swirls around smoothly. And then at the last, it bites like a serpent and stings like a viper. Let me suggest something. Verse 31 here, that is wine at first, okay? The next verse, he's going to say at the last. Well, at the first, it doesn't look like a serpent. It doesn't look like a viper. At the first, here it is. It looks very enticing, doesn't it? It looks like something that you might be interested in because it's red, it has the right color, it sparkles in the cup, it swirls around smoothly. But at the last, it bites like a serpent and stings like a viper. Sin, any sin, all sin is just like that. At the first, remember, there is pleasure in sin. The Hebrew writer in Hebrews 11 and verse 25 talks about, the passing pleasures of sin. Well, at first, sin presents itself as something very pleasurable. At the last, we find out it's not pleasurable at all, not when you compare the pleasure with the pain, Because remember, the wages of sin is death. Romans 6 and verse 23. And so here it is at the last. And it is no longer just smooth and sparkling. No, now it's biting, and now it's stinging. So at the last, it bites like a serpent and stings like a viper. Notice, your eyes will see strange things, and your heart will utter perverse things. And so, you know yourself, the wine, the intoxication, it takes away our judgment. It takes away our sense. We're seeing things, they're not there. We're saying things that we'd never say if we weren't in that state, if we weren't drunk, if we weren't intoxicated. Perverse things. This is the idea of wickedness, ungodliness. You know, again, the inhibitions are weakened tremendously when we're under the influence of alcohol. We're no longer inhibited. We're no longer guarding what we say. And so our eyes are seeing strange things. Our heart will utter perverse things. Isn't it interesting that he says the heart, not the mouth? You know, as you know, a man speaks from what comes out of the heart, doesn't he? And so this is why he can say your heart utters perverse things. Because our mouth utters what's in the heart. And so it's perverse. Who has the woe? Who has the sorrow? Well, the one that's seeing strange things, the one who now is speaking perverse things, never would say things like this if they were in their right, sober mind. But now they're not. And so they're saying things that you never would have thought they would say. It goes on to say in verse 34, yes, you'll be like one who lies down in the midst of the sea, or like one who lies at the top of the mast. First of all, let's deal with those. In the midst of the sea, or like one who lies at the top of the mast. The point here is they are oblivious to danger. They're so gone, they're so out of it. They don't know where they are. They don't know what's happening around them. They just as soon make their bed that night in the midst of the sea. They'd lay down in the ocean and, of course, drown. Or at the top of the mast. This is the point where in the boat, in the ship, the agitation, if you will, is the greatest there. It doesn't take a lot with the waves to get that top mast to be going back and forth. But they're so drunk, they're so intoxicated, they think that's a fitting place to lie down, the top of the mast. And so, once again, their eyes seeing strange things, their mouth and heart speaking perverse things. So strange, so perverse, they're willing to lie down in the midst of the sea or climb the mast and try to have a good night's sleep up there. Again, this might be the worst consequence of all. And I'm not talking about the first part of this verse. But look at the first part. They have struck me, but I was not hurt. They have beaten me, but I did not feel it. And, you know, last week I even asked the question, you know, when we talked about wounds without cause, I mentioned that. Well, you know, we wonder, why do they have wounds without cause? Well, it's because they're drinking. That's what Solomon's saying. But who's inflicting those wounds? Who is the they? You know, they have struck me. Who are they? But I was not hurt. They have beaten me, but I did not feel it. Let me suggest something. You know, we like to talk about, and I'm talking about our society, we like to talk about social drinking. But as I mentioned last week, that is a misnomer. That is an oxymoron. That's like jumbo shrimp. You think those two words don't go together. Social drinking does not go together either. Wine is a brawler. Remember? That's what it does. And so probably the ones who has inflicted wounds upon him without cause, those who struck him, those who have beaten him, his friends, his drinking buddies. Notice this. Go back with me to chapter 23, just a little bit earlier in the chapter. In chapter 20, or let me see, chapter 23. Look at this. Chapter 23. Look at verse 20. It says, "Do not mix with winebibbers or with gluttonous eaters of meat, for the drunkard and the glutton will come to poverty, and drowsiness will clothe a man with rags. But do not mix with winebibbers." Why not? Again, there's another prohibition concerning the drinking. Don't mix with them. Don't have a friendship with them. Look back in chapter 22. Look at chapter 22 and verse 24. It says, "Make no friendship with an angry man, and with a furious man do not go, lest you learn his ways and set a snare for your soul." Well, the same reason you don't make a friendship with an angry man is the same reason you don't mix with winebibbers, lest you learn their ways. But this man's been beaten. This man has wounds, and remember, without cause. There's no legitimate cause behind these wounds. Somebody struck him. Somebody's beaten him. Well, again, only thing I can figure out, if you have a better suggestion, I think it's the ones that he's drinking with. Because remember, now they're all drinking, they're all drunk, they all have woe, they all have sorrow, they all have contentions. Those contentions, did it break out into a fight? Foolishness. They have complaints. They have wounds without cause. They have redness of eyes. Remember, their eyes are seeing strange things, and their mouth is speaking perverse things. So who knows what they're telling each other? Who knows what they're saying to each other? But again, the man's been beaten, but he says, "I wasn't hurt." Why? Because he's intoxicated. He doesn't even feel what's going on. "They beat me, but I did not feel it. When shall I awake that I may seek another drink?" That, my friend, is the saddest consequence right there. They don't even learn the lesson. After they are aroused from this intoxicated stupor, the only thing they're thinking about is what it began with: seeking out, searching out strong drink, lingering long after the wine. So they haven't learned their lesson. They sober up and they say, "When can we drink again? Where's my bottle?" And so really you look at this in Proverbs, it's very sad. Very sad. Let's move on. I know we're running out of time. This is a great context right here. Some have tried to misuse this to, sort of say that, well, Proverbs 31 encourages social drinking. That's the farthest thing from this context. Read it with me. Let's view it in an honest state. Look what it's saying. Verses 1 through 9, we'll read it, we'll come back. Number 1, the words of King Lemuel, the utterance which his mother taught him. "What, my son, and what son of my womb, and what son of my vows? Do not give your strength to women, nor your ways to that which destroys kings. It is not for kings, O Lemuel, it is not for kings to drink wine, nor for princes intoxicating drink, lest they drink and forget the law and pervert the justice of all the afflicted. Give strong drink to him who is perishing, and wine to those who are bitter of heart. Let him drink and forget his poverty and remember his misery no more. Open your mouth for the speechless. In the cause of all who are appointed to die, open your mouth, judge righteously, and plead the cause of the poor and needy." Let's go back. Go back to verse 1 here. Look at this. The words of King Lemuel, the utterance which his mother taught him. Now this is significant. First of all, we see the mother in Proverbs doing teaching. Proverbs 22 and verse 6, "Train up a child in the way that he should go." Well, it's just not father teaching the young. His mother taught him this. And so these are really not even his words. He claims them, the words of King Lemuel, but notice what he adds, the utterance which his mother taught him. So this is really what his mother told him. But he remembers this. I mentioned this quickly. I'm going to mention it again quickly. Wives and mothers, don't ever sell your influence short. I guess more than anybody on the face of the earth, you have the greatest influence on people. And here's the example. The mightiest man in the kingdom, the king, he remembers what his mother taught him. He remembers her utterance. And remember 1 Peter 3 and verse 1, if you have a husband who's disobedient to the law, he can be won without a word as he observes your chaste and respectful behavior. Don't ever sell your influence short on your children. They're listening. No, they might not obey all the time, but they're listening. They know what you've told them. And don't ever sell your influence short on your husband. He can be won without a word as he observes your chaste and respectful behavior. But notice this now. This is about to call, these questions right here, 3 questions, about to call attention to the mother's importance, her influence, and the importance of what she's about to tell him. And so what, my son, stop there, begins with this beautiful relationship. Mother and son. Yes, mother and daughter, it's a beautiful relationship, but father, son, father, daughter, all of it is. But what she's showing here is you're my son. What, my son? And what, son of my womb? You're the one I carried for 9 months. You're the one I protected before you ever came into this world. You're the one that received your nourishment from me as you were forming, as you were growing in the womb. And think about this. What, son of my womb? You know, I was thinking about this the other day. I wrote down something. I think it's a very, very valid point. And I think right here is the problem with abortion. The problem with abortion is a heart problem, because you will not carry in your womb what you do not carry in your heart. If the child's not even in your thoughts, in your heart, you're not going to carry them in your womb. But she says, what, my son? What, son of my womb? And what, son of my vows? Doesn't that sound like Hannah? Give me a child, and I vow I will dedicate him to the Lord all the days of his life. So she prefaces what she's about to say. The importance of her influence, the importance of her, the importance of these words now. Do not give your strength to women, nor your ways to that which destroys kings. Well, we're about to see what destroys kings is, of course, women and wine. But specifically, what destroys kings, the wine. It's not for kings, O Lemuel. It's not for kings to drink wine, nor for princes intoxicating drink. So once again, there's the prohibition. No, King Lemuel, you don't need it. You get away from it. Princes, you don't need it. Don't be drinking the wine. Don't be drinking the intoxicating drink. Notice, lest they drink and forget the law and pervert the justice of all the afflicted. King Lemuel's mother is saying, you're the king. And there are people in your kingdom looking to you for justice. They're looking to you to plead their case. And if you're over here as king, you're drunk, you're going to forget justice. You're going to forget the law. You're going to pervert everything that was right and holy. Remember, speaking perverse things, now perverting justice of the afflicted. So the point is clear. It's not for you. This is something that will destroy a king, not enhance his regime and his leadership. Well, give strong drink. This is where people foolishly say, see, it's talking about social drinking. No, it's not at all. This is not saying, son, it will destroy you, so you give to others what will destroy them. That doesn't even make sense. What makes sense is what they're saying here. There are people who are crushed. There are people who are crushed, and you give this to them, the strong drink as a sedative, medicinally, because they won't feel the pain. Give strong drink to who? To him who is perishing, and wine to those who are bitter of heart. You remember 2 times in Mark 15, Jesus was offered wine. First time he did not take it, did he? I believe that's because he wanted even to face death. He faced life with a sober mind. I believe he wanted to face death with sobriety of mind, lest someone after the fact say, well, look, Jesus took that wine. He didn't even feel what he was going through. No, Jesus made sure that would never be said. And so the other one was the sour wine. It was only to quench thirst. I thirst, he said. But again, give strong drink to the one who's perishing. Let him drink and forget his poverty and remember his misery no more. You don't drink it, King, because you'll forget the law. You don't drink it because you won't remember to stand for the rights of the less fortunate. So let the one who's perishing drink it. He can drink it as we offer it to him compassionately so he won't feel the pain, the immense pain of being put to death. Again, open your mouth. Now notice, it doesn't say open your mouth for wine. He's already been told, don't even look upon it. So what do? You open your mouth for the speechless. This is probably not someone who is infirmed of speech. This is probably someone who has no voice in the court. They're poor. No one's listening to them. King Lemuel's mother said, you be their voice. That's why you don't drink wine. It's not for you. It will destroy kings. You be the mouth for the speechless. And in the cause of all who are appointed to die. Again, you open your mouth for them. And open your mouth, judge righteously, and plead the cause of the poor and needy. You know, isn't that phrase interesting, open your mouth? In Proverbs 31, just a little bit later than this, that virtuous woman, she opens her mouth. Just like, King Lemuel's mother said, son, you open your mouth. But you open it for the speechless. You open it for those who are appointed to die. You open it for the poor and needy. Well, again, she opens her mouth in wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her lips. He likewise opens his mouth with authority, the authority of a king. And he opens his mouth with sobriety. He is pleading the case, the king himself, for those that the courts will not listen to, for those who are appointed to die, for the poor and the needy. He is dispensing justice. He hasn't forgotten the law. He will not pervert justice. He remembers what his mother told him. And so again, not just mothers and wives, all of us, let's remember the influence we have. We might not think people are listening, but people are listening more than we think they do. Appreciate so much your attention tonight. Let's remember these 2 contexts. We also mentioned Proverbs 20 and verse 1 last week, but these are very important. And again, no, not one of them is endorsing social drinking. In fact, there's not one context in the Bible, Old Testament or New, that would ever lend itself to encourage social drinking. Thank you for your attention tonight.